Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone, my name is Keumala Azzahra. Today I would like to present a journal entitled Gender Stereotypes in Student English Writing, written by Azzahra and published in Metasis, Journal of English Language Literature and Teaching in 2020. In this presentation, I will explain the background of the research, the method used, the findings, discussion, conclusion, and also the researcher suggestion. Alright, so before we discussing the research, the journal first explain the difference between sex and gender. Sex refers to biological differences between man and woman, such as physical characteristics. Meanwhile, gender refers to social roles and expectations created by society. The journal explained that society often creates stereotypes about men and women. These stereotypes are spread through media, education, family, television, textbook, and daily culture. Because of this, many people unconsciously accept those stereotypes as normal. The researcher focused on STIKAS Nasional, a health science college in Indonesia. Most students at this college are female. In fact, female students also dominate student organization and leadership position. Many female students become class leaders, organization leaders, and achieve good academic results. At first glance, this situation seems to challenge traditional stereotypes because women appear active and successful in public roles. However, the researcher wanted to know whether students' way of thinking had really changed. So the researcher investigate whether gender stereotypes still appear in the student English writing. Okay, next is research objective. The objective of this research is to analyze gender stereotypes found in students' English writing. More specifically, the researcher wanted to know first how women are represented in student sentences, how men are represented in student sentences, whether students' writing still support patriarchal ideology. The researcher believed that the words students choose in writing can reveal their perspective and belief about gender. Next is the research method. This research used a descriptive qualitative method with textual analysis. The researcher focused on students' word choice and sentence construction. The data were collected from English 1 and English 3 classes. Students were asked to create English sentences using grammar lessons such as simple present tense, simple past tense, subject-verb agreement, gerunds, and infinitives, relative clause, and students will also create sentences using words related to stereotypes. And next slide is data analysis. In the analysis process, the researcher examined the subject used in sentences, the verbs, and the activities connected to male or female characters. Although women appeared more frequently in the sentences, the researcher found that women were still represented with traditional stereotypes. This means that quantity does not automatically change ideology. Next, findings: public sphere versus domestic sphere. The first major finding is about the division between public and domestic roles. Women were often connected with domestic activities such as cooking, cleaning, washing clothes, and taking care of children. For example, my mother cooked meatball last Monday, or Indah cleaned the bedroom last week. Meanwhile, men were connected with public activities and jobs outside the home, such as he worked in the post office. The researcher explained that these sentences reinforce patriarchal belief that women belong in the domestic sphere while men belong in the public sphere. Even when men did domestic activities, they were still connected with objects considered more prestigious, such as cars instead of clothes. Next, findings: active versus passive. The second finding is related to active and passive roles. Women were often represented as passive or consumptive. The activities include shopping, eating, watching, or waiting. For example, my mother shopped in a mall, or my mother enjoyed watching television. These activities make women appear passive and dependent. Meanwhile, men were represented as active and energetic through activities like sports, work, leadership, and movement. For example, my brother didn't win the basketball tournament, or Sultan asked Rashid to play soccer. Even if men lost in sports, they were still represented as active participants. Next slide, findings: strong versus weak. The third finding discusses about personality stereotypes. Women were portrayed as emotional, sensitive, weak, and dependent. For example, my sister cried last Sunday, or Lisa became emotional on her graduation day. Meanwhile, men were portrayed as brave, strong, aggressive, rational, and intelligent. For example, include Dito was brave to fight, or father taught science, or he led to meeting. The journal explained that science, leadership, and bravery are still strongly associated with men. This shows that traditional masculine and feminine stereotypes still exist in students' thinking. Okay, next is discussion. In the discussion section, the researcher explained that patriarchal ideology is still deeply rooted in society. Even though female students dominate the campus and hold leadership positions, their writing still reflects traditional stereotypes. According to the journal, this happens because society constantly shapes people's perspective through family, school, media, religion, and culture. For conclusion, the research shows that students' writing still reflects patriarchal gender stereotypes. Women are mostly represented as passive, emotional, domestic, and dependent. Meanwhile, men are represented as active, strong, brave, intelligent, and dominant in public roles. This proves that patriarchal ideology is still strong even among female students who are successful in education and leadership. And for suggestion, the researcher gives several suggestions. First, educational institution should actively promote gender equality. Second, students should be introduced to reading materials that contain gender equality perspective. Third, more research about gender equality should be conducted in college. The researcher hopes students can become agents of change and help reduce gender stereotypes in society. Alright, so that's all for me. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.